In 1979, I was 24 years old, and I was qualified as first officer on the Boeing 707. I got called from a company. I got a call from a company down in Florida that I'd worked for before, and they asked me to participate in a crew operation for a 707 that was going to be test flown a few times, then flown and ferried to Africa. Well, that sounded like fun. So we test flew it over in the Carolinas and got a squawk list. That stuff got fixed. We took it to Miami. We flew it one night, test flew it, had a squawk list. That stuff got fixed. And we took off at 3 o'clock in the morning one night, headed for West Africa. The idea being that we weren't sure exactly what the fuel burns would be, if they were accurate, that we had in the book, whatever. So we had a few alternate airports there. The airplane was going to be used for a new airline based in Lagos, Nigeria, that would fly to Stansted in London a couple of times a week. The owner and his director of maintenance were going to travel with us in the back of the airplane. Passenger airplane. Looked pretty doggone nice. Well done, but an older, small tank 707. So we decide we're going to go, and we take off. 3 o'clock in the morning, where it's cool, got the best performance. We needed it to get out of Miami, as heavy as we were. We took off, got out east of the Bahamas, and had one of the 4 engines fail. It just quit. We come back, burn off some fuel, land at Miami, stay for a few days. They fixed it, and some other squawks. Made us think about it, and we decided to take the airplane and go to San Juan, then go to West Africa. That would give us a shorter distance and give us some alternates in West Africa in case we had to land short of Lagos. Now, we'd had a big crew meeting with all the mechanics, with the owner of the airplane, who was a Nigerian who owned a big security company in Nigeria, the leaseors, the Charlotte Aircraft, who owned the airplane, and the pilot crew. We had all gotten together in a hangar and had this big meeting. Part of the meeting was the Captain Blagrove, who I was flying with, asked the owner of the airplane, "Hey, do you have landing permission in the following airports?" He named a number of airports in West Africa. "Yes, I do." Pull these sheets out of his briefcase. Okay, so we go down to San Juan. We fly all night. It's a pretty long haul, and we decide to land in Monrovia, Liberia. Now, none of the countries are super stable there, but Nigeria is just corrupt, and Liberia at that time was super corrupt. So we go bop in there. All we're going to do is get gas and pay for it and leave. What's the big deal, So we land, and my job was to file a flight plan. The engineer, his job was to fuel it, check the oil, that sort of stuff. The captain was going to go pay the landing fees, and he and the owner of the airline, the Nigerian, went in to do that. We're all going to meet in like an hour and a half. Everybody does their jobs, and I filed this flight plan over to Lagos. We all get on the airplane. Now it's getting warm. It's up in the middle of the day, and it's no heat, no air conditioning, no APU on a 707. So maybe we got an electric cart and some steps, but other than that, no service. And we've got coolers full of bologna sandwiches and water and things like that, but we don't eat anything. So I walked around the terminal. We all kind of okay, I've been to Monrovia. So time goes on, and the time passes that everybody's going to be there. The captain and the owner of the airplane are not there. They're not there. They hadn't come back. We walked through the terminal, can't find them. Nobody knows anything. We were supposed to leave at like 11. So at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, all of a sudden, the lights on the airplane, the power's disconnected. They go out. Relays start tripping in the cockpit. We go up there and cut the batteries off, battery switches and things, and cool the air, take the airplane down cold. And walk over to the steps, and they're pulling the steps away. And we're thinking, what the heck? What's going on with that? So on a 707, there's a door down below in the cockpit called the lower 41. And you can go down and twist a little handle, and a little hatch opens up, and you can climb out onto the ground. You got to reach your toes and drop down to the ground. So it's a way out off the airplane, out of the cockpit, through the E&E, electrical and compartment down below where all the radio racks and all that. You climb through that, go down lower 41, and you're out of there. So we're going to get off the airplane and find out what happened. So we start down that way, drop my feet down, and I feel somebody hitting the bottom of my feet. I look down, they're hitting them with a dang machine gun. So I pull my feet back up, we close that hatch and go over to the door to try to look out and see what we can figure out. These little Jeeps start pulling up with these machine gun guys. They get around, they're surrounding the airplane. We're talking to them, they won't talk back. Nobody's saying anything. Now it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's about, north of 100 degrees, humid. Got our shirts off, we're down in underwear, sitting there drinking bottled water, thinking, what in the heck have we gotten into? The captain's still not back. First officer, engineer, and the mechanic for the airline, new airline, we're all on board. So we go to sleep finally. 10 o'clock at night, what you gonna do? So we're sitting in the business class seats, in our boxers, hot, no fans, no air conditioning, no nothing, just hot in West Africa. And we hear somebody say, hey, hey, hey. Wake up, run to the door, and look out. The door's open, and no steps or anything. Looking down at a guy in a coat and tie down on the ground. And he identifies himself. He's assistant U.S. ambassador to Liberia. What are we doing here? Why are we here? He says, it turns out that you didn't have landing permission. And we said, yeah, we did. The owner of the airline said he said, well, it turned out he had telexed Liberia but never received a reply. So you guys come bopping in, unbeknownst to them. They don't know this is going on. We said, well, what's the big deal with that? And they said, well, tomorrow afternoon, the Organization for African Unity is having a monster meeting here, and we've got Idi Amin and Yasser Arafat and all these guys coming in, flying in tomorrow, and here you are, a security risk on the ramp. They don't know what you're doing. What do we do? Well, they're going to come out about 7 o'clock in the morning and inspect the airplane, and they're going to go through everything. You got anything you need to tell me about? We said no. So, okay. So we go back to sleep, and about 6, daylight or whatever, out in Africa, we wake up, we get ready, put our uniforms back on, and sure enough, at 7, they're here, and they weren't on the airplane. They come up, pull some steps. They go through our flight kits. They go through everything. They open the belly of the airplane. They don't know if we got machine guns in there for a coup attempt. They just don't know, but they're real curious. They're looking at everything. So the captain, Larry, pulls us aside, and he said, we got a problem. He said, they put me in a prison downtown. And he said, the Nigerian guy that owned the airline started running his mouth down there and about got us beat up. He said, they were throwing water on me all night, wouldn't let me sleep. He said, this guy's threatening them and everything. And he said, it did not go well, and I'm not taking him to Nigeria. And we said, well, if you're not, we're not. And I said, what are our options, And he said, well, we got a problem. He said, the guy says he's not letting us leave with his airplane unless we take him to Nigeria. And the director of a minister of security for the whole country was down there interrogating us. He says if we don't leave by 5 o'clock today, that we're all going to prison, and they're going to take the airplane. So we got to come up with a compromise. So we're supposed to have a meeting in a little while at like noon or whatever, in the Pan Am was still in business, Pan Am station manager's office. So sure enough, we go down there and we sit for about 3 hours, total loggerheads. The owner of the airplane says, if you leave with the airplane, you have to go to Lagos. And the captain says, I'm not flying you to Nigeria. Apparently, the Nigerian guy had threatened that when we got there, he was going to have him killed. He says, I own the largest security company. I'll have you killed before you get off the airport. It just didn't go well. So we were not going to take him, but we needed to get out of there. And they said, if the airplane's not going at 5, y'all are going to prison. We had the assistant ambassador there trying to help negotiate. Well, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's no progress. We're all pretty frustrated. And the captain said, Van, can I talk to you a second? We walk out in the hall and he says, go over to the weather office and file us a flight plan to Abidjan in the Ivory Coast. But don't tell a soul. Just file it and walk out of there. And go back to the airplane and get as much as you can ready. And he says, I'm going to go in here and agree to take it to Lagos, but we're not. And nobody knows. And we're going to take off and we're going to Abidjan instead. And we'll deal with it on the ground in Abidjan. So I did. Got back on the airplane through the lower 41. Got the airplane as ready as I could. Engineer joined me. We got it ready to fly. So about 4:15, the captain shows up with a Nigerian. Nigerian goes in the back with his director of maintenance. And we crank up and taxi out at about 10 minutes to 5 with these Jeeps following us with machine guns out to the end of the runway and take off. We climb out of about 16,000 feet. Now we're headed for Abidjan. About 16,000 feet, the captain says, Van, take the airplane. You got it. So I start flying. And he says, I'm getting up. He says, I got a problem. I said, what happened? He said, I've got a hidden compartment in the bottom of my flight kit. And I've got $6,000 in there to get us out if we have to bribe somebody. I didn't know about it. Engineer didn't know about it. And he said, the money's gone. He said, the only person that knew that was there, that little compartment, is the Nigerian. And he says, he's got it. And I said, how does he know you got it? And he says, because he's the one that had to give it to me. That was part of the contract for us to do this. He says, yeah, sometimes you have to bribe people, and I've got to have cash. And he says, I've got it. He's got it now. He said, I'll be back. So he closes the door. We lock the door of the cockpit, and he goes in the back with a Nigerian guy. About 10 minutes later, he comes back, knocks on the door. We look through the peephole. It's him. We let him in and lock the door again. And we said, what happened? He said, I told him that if he didn't come up with the 6,000 in 5 minutes, that we were going to throw him out the door over West Africa and the lions that eat him. And we said, we can't get a door open. It's all pressurized and they're plug doors. And he said, I know that, but he doesn't know that. So we wait, and about 3 minutes, there's a knock at the door. We look through the peephole, and he's standing there flipping cash. We open the door. He's got the 6,000, and he hands it to us, and he said he found it in a seat back pocket. So now we lock the door, and we go, and we land it's after dark. We land at Abidjan on the Ivory Coast. And taxiing in, the Nigerian looks out the window and realizes he's not in Lagos. And he starts screaming. We taxi in. We've called Air Afrique. They're the big company there, the handler. And they're going to handle us and put steps and put an electrical cart and everything, park us. So we call Air Afrique and we tell them, and they say, sure, we'll meet you out there. So they marshal us in. And as they pull some steps up to the front door, the Nigerian jumps in front of the captain and starts screaming, help me, call the police, I've been hijacked. It's my aircraft, I've been hijacked. And the guy's just standing there, the agent's not knowing what to do. So the captain takes him and pulls the Nigerian out of the way and jumps over to the steps. There's a couple of feet gap and runs down the steps. And over there in Africa, 4 stripes means something. If you're the captain, it's a real deal. So the agent's listening to the captain, and the captain says, here's kind of the 1-minute version of what's just happened. So they pull the steps away. We go in the cockpit and lock the door. The 2 Nigerians are in the back. I'm up front with the engineer. The captain motions for us to come down the lower 41, and we pass all of our bags down the lower 41 and onto the ground. They put us in a little cart and take us to their office. Now, the Nigerians are on the airplane and can't get off. They can't get in the cockpit to go down the lower 41, and they can't jump to the ground without breaking both legs. So, in the office, the captain says to the agent, we need to get out of the country, and we need to do it fast. What are our options? And the Air Freak agent said, well, there's a DC-10 over there loading up right now, but it's going to Geneva and Paris, but it's full. And so the captain says, it's totally full? And he says, yeah, I mean, it's oversold. The captain reached down in his bag and he pulled out $6,000 and he started counting. When he got to about $3,000, the agent said, well, you know, there might be a chance there's 3 middle seats on that thing. It got kind of quiet there for a second, and the captain peeled off another $500 and put the money up. In about 15 minutes, that DC-10 pushed back for Geneva, and I was sitting in a middle seat. And we taxied out for takeoff and watched our 707 sitting there with guys looking out the window. They couldn't get off yet, but they did later. We flew to Geneva and Paris. I caught a Delta to Atlanta, and I was home. But I was miserable, and I'd worn the same clothes about 4 or 5 days, it seemed like, and stunk. And the whole time, I didn't ever really feel in danger, even though I might have been. But I had a little notepad, and I wrote down sort of a diary of what was going on, and I would hide it in the liner of my seat, my first officer's seat, thinking, if this goes south, you know, maybe my dad or somebody will come over here and they'll figure it out, find out what happened. But everybody's name I could remember, and everybody's face, and the chronology, I kept that. I've still got that tucked in my logbook. But that was probably the sketchiest thing like that. And it's good to get out of those third world countries and get back where it's just worrying about catering. You know, have we got enough chips? It's a little easier on you.